Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here. Let me just get my papers in order. Welcome to the John Stark School District Deliberative Session. My name is Luke Drake. I am your moderator for the evening. Before we get into the business, I want to introduce a few people to you all and thank them for their service. First, we have the school board. We have chairperson, Mr. Zach Lawson. We have, Jill Dejanay, Angela Drake, Deb Urbatus, and James Newcomb. From the SAU 24, we have Dr. Jacqueline Coe, Superintendent of the Schools, Mrs. Natasha Kolimayan, Assistant Superintendent, Christopher Roy, the Business Manager, Mrs. Martha LeMahieu, Director of Student Services, and Dr. Gregory Reinhardt, Director of Technology. We have from the high school, Gary Dempsey, Principal. Our school attorney is Gordon Graham up here with us. Our school district clerk is Mrs. Katie Sear. We have two sets of tables out there who are very lonely at the moment, but the supervisor of the checklists. For Henniker, we have Karen Landis and Lori Marco, and for Ware, we have Terry Wanowski and Lily Tang Williams. So thank you all for your service this evening, and hopefully this will be a pretty straightforward evening. I am going to first go over the rules for the conduct of the meeting, the moderator's rules. I am going to skip the part about the masks and the mask wearing. I think we're all pretty familiar with wearing masks by this point, and we do have a room available for those folks who are not able to wear a mask. So I'm starting with the conduct of the meeting. Oh, let me just say first off that the restrooms for those of us in this room will be directly out this hall and to the left after you get through the foyer. For those who are in the music room, you'll exit the music room, take a left and a right down that first hallway, and your restrooms are right there. Okay. Conduct of the meeting. The moderator will not follow Robert's rules. The moderator will use the following general rules of procedure, whose main purpose is to keep the meeting moving and not get bogged down in procedural quagmires. By majority vote, the voters can overrule any decision that the moderator makes and any rule that the moderator establishes. A voter can raise a request by point of order. Any warrants before the body will be considered one at a time and in order. We only have one warrant this evening with 5 articles. Any voting member of the public who wishes to speak to a warrant or article thereof may place their name on the speaker's list in each room. Given the number of folks we have tonight, I think simply raising your hand and stepping up to the microphone will do. Please provide your name and the article you wish to address. The moderator and the assistant moderator, by the way, I forgot to mention, Keith Erf is acting as our assistant moderator this evening for the maskless room. Please provide your name, the article you wish to address. The moderator and assistant moderators will exhaust these lists prior to asking for a show of hands or additional speakers from the floor. In recognition of the pandemic, speakers are asked to remain in their seats until asked to approach by the moderator in their room. The moderator will address each article as follows. The moderator will announce the article number, read the article, and the text of the article will be displayed on the overhead screen or will be otherwise made available at the meeting. The moderator will recognize a member of the school board to open discussions on the article. The meeting will debate the article and any amendments to the article and vote on any amendments to the article. Everyone who speaks must use a microphone so they can be heard. Both locations will have a mic, and an assistant moderator who will help coordinate the order of discussion. The moderator will indicate which voter at which microphone in which venue has the floor. Not a big deal this evening. We only have one person in the other room, so I don't think we're going to have a traffic jam on that point. Unless it is an assistant moderator notifying the gymnasium, I skipped a line. No one may speak to the body unless he or she has the floor, unless it is an assistant moderator notifying the moderator in the gymnasium of a voter wishing to speak in the remote venue. No one may have the floor unless recognized by the moderator, with the exception of voters raising a point of order or seconding floor actions, or disabled persons requesting accommodation at their seat. The moderator will not recognize speakers unless they are at one of the microphones. Again, we'll vary that. If you want to speak, raise your hand and we'll take care of that. Any voter may speak on any point of order from their seat after being recognized, including the call to second a motion, to challenge a moderator's ruling, or to overrule the moderator. Each speaker must provide his or her name and address of residence, including those who raise a point of order or second a motion. All motions, except motions to limit debate / call the question, must be in writing and delivered to the moderator. This may take some time due to the separate locations. The moderator will allow only one motion on the floor at a time, except a voter may raise a point of order at any time. And if the voter has the floor, the voter may make a motion to call the question. The moderator will not accept negative motions, which are motions that require a no vote in the affirmative, such as I move that we not adopt the budget. Motions to call the question, limit debate, and require a 2/3 vote. If passed, these motions will stop debate on a motion. However, all those who previously indicated to the moderator that they wish to speak to the motion will be allowed to do so. In addition, the moderator shall reserve the right to refuse to recognize a motion to call the question if, in the moderator's opinion, the voters have not yet had an adequate opportunity to discuss the issue. Without objection, the moderator may also permit non-resident school district staff and their subject matter experts to provide information to the assembly regarding motions on the floor. All speakers must be courteous and must speak to the issues, not the individuals raising them. The moderator will not allow personal attacks or inappropriate language. If, in the opinion of the moderator, any person behaves in a disorderly manner and after notice from the moderator persists in such behavior or shall in any way disturb the meeting or willfully violate any rule of the proceeding, the moderator may have a police officer or any legal voter of the town remove such a person from the meeting. And the reference there is RSA 40:8. All questions and comments should be addressed to the moderator. The moderator will choose who responds to the question. With the exceptions of initial presentations of article, which the moderator requests be limited to 10 minutes, all speakers in the debate are requested to limit their discussion to 3 minutes. Each person may only speak once on any single motion or amendment until every other person who wishes to speak has had the opportunity to do so. Due to our locations this year, all votes will be by a show of hands holding your voter cards. Any 5 voters may require that the vote on any article or question be by secret ballot. To do so, all 5 voters must be present, stand, and be identified. The request must be presented to the moderator to end the debate on the article or question. And that's the end of those somewhat painful rules. Okay, moving along, we'll just begin. So, John Stark, to the inhabitants of the school district and the towns of Henniker and Ware qualified. Session 1, the deliberative. You are hereby notified to meet at the John Stark Regional High School cafeteria, and here we are. And it says on Friday, the 5th day of February, minor mistake, since we're not in February any longer, but that would be the Monday, the 5th day of April at 7 p.m. The session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of the warrant articles 1 through 5. Warrant articles will be amended subject to the following limitations. A, warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for final vote on the main motion as amended. And C, no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject of the article. And then session 2 will be the actual vote. Session 2, you are hereby notified to meet at the Henniker Community School, 51 Western Avenue, Henniker, with polls open at 7 a.m. and closing at 7 p.m., and the Ware Middle School, 16 East Road, Ware, with the polls opening at 7 a.m. and closing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 9th of May. I'm sorry, the 11th of May, 11th of May. to vote by official ballot on the election of officers and of Articles 1 through 5, as acted upon at the deliberative section. And also to choose by nonpartisan ballot the following school district officers: 1 school board member at large and 1 school district moderator. Okay, that being the case, we'll begin with the articles. Article 1. Shall the John Stark School District receive the report of agents, auditors, committees, and other officers chosen as printed in the annual report? Does anyone from the board wish to address this article? Is there any discussion on this article? Hearing none, let the record reflect that it will show up on the ballot as written. Article 2, shall the John Stark School District set the salaries of the school board and the compensation for any other officers of the district as printed in the 2021-2022 budget, or take any other actions in relation thereto? This warrant article is supported by the school board. The 2021-2022 amount is included in warrant Article 3, the operating budget. A majority vote is required. Anybody from the board wish to address this article? Is there any discussion from the floor? Hearing none, we'll move along. Article 3. Shall the John Stark School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $14,425,926. Should this article be defeated, the default budget will be $14,424,398, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 15, 16, I'm not so great with my Roman numerals, to take up the issue of revised operating budget only. This warrant article is supported by the school board, majority vote required. Would you like to address this one?
Yes, and Mr. Moderator, may I take the podium to cover this?
You may, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to turn the computer around so I can see it. So I'd like to start by, I guess, first thanking everybody for being here this evening and for making this happen, actually. I think is sort of like the first thing we need to cover. Obviously, as we are, I hope, on the downside or on the downswing of COVID here, we still obviously have to get through these kinds of things. A year ago, we did not know this is where we would be. And so we conducted our normal annual meetings and our normal deliberative session without a hint that we would be sitting in this position a year from then. But here we are. And thank you all very much again for bearing with us as we've delayed things in the interest of safety and security for everybody that's involved. And with that said, I'd like to just move into our normal deliberative session this evening. I want to talk a little bit about sort of what our budget foundations are here. And you'll notice that there is a slight change, or a fairly major change, in imagery around our website, the SAU24 website, and all of the constituent schools therein, as well as the logo that you see here. You'll recall, I've written about it in my report, you've heard Superintendent Coe talking about this. We embarked on this project, again, all of this stuff pre-COVID, around the idea of what it means to be a portrait of a graduate from John Stark, which evolved into what it means to be a portrait of a learner here within SAU24, and again, all the constituent schools therein. And that is extended to, for us, what it means to be sort of having the portrait of a board member. And it involves these three main tenets: the idea of being a respectful collaborator, an effective communicator, and a knowledgeable problem solver and creator. This is a vision and sort of a framework we wish to apply in all things we do in this district. And so I'm very proud that this is something we can share with all of you in a very formal way this evening. So the bulleted items that are here are ones which you have seen us talk about before. We still maintain needing to address academic, social, and emotional needs of all of our students. We support students in becoming respectful collaborators, effective communicators, and knowledgeable problem solvers and creators. Again, all of these things that are sort of tied to being a portrait of a learner. We provide the necessary instruction and strategies to all learners and to students with learning disabilities. And this is something you've heard us talk about related to, we sum it up usually as student need. The idea that a lot of our special education expenditures, particularly some that involve out-of-district placements, are aimed at meeting those individual student needs. We focus on continuous improvement through a strategic plan and examination of data. Believe me, there has been nothing but examination of data this year related to the way in which we run the school in the face of COVID. A lot of the data not actually being student data for a change. We are looking at a lot of community data and other information from our supporting community. And we are striving to increase operational efficiencies. That's interesting that has taken, I won't say a backseat in spite of COVID, but we certainly have had to understand operational efficiencies when we have been thrown a massive financial curveball going into this particular year. So that obviously requires some thanks and some positive critique of everything that's been going on here with the administration at John Stark, as well as across the entire district, SAU 24. So, it may seem like we didn't do anything at school this year, but that is just flatly not true. We are still incredibly proud of our students and the resilience that they have shown. And I was writing my annual report this year and thinking, for some of our students, when we get out of this, they will have spent nearly half of their high school career learning from not here. And besides, the academic sort of disparity that can create between some of our students, they're missing out on a life experience that pretty much everybody in this room had the opportunity to go through, and it's incredibly formative besides being academic. And that is regrettable, and yet we still managed to do as much as we could for our students. And some of these images, show the things that we were able to accomplish over the course of this year. And we're very proud of our students for being able to do this. Playing the clarinet with a mask on, that seems impossible to me. This is graduation. We pulled off graduation. That was a lot of work for Gary and his team, and they really should be commended for making something work. Mind you, this was at the height of COVID, guys. We didn't know what was going on yet. This was still something in early June that most of us didn't know how to deal with, and we were able to make a graduation work for our students, and we're very proud that we did. So, to the business at hand, talking a little bit about the rest of the warrants here. I'm here to talk about Article 3. Deb will come up to talk with you about Article 4, and then I'll return to talk about Article 5. That being said, let's just jump into Article 3. This is the third time that this has been presented. The story of our budget this year is one that has been affected by essentially a very small number of moving parts, the largest of which has to do with money that has moved, or rather revenue, that has moved from the SAU 24 budget into the John Stark budget, okay? Before I get into that, I'm just going to sort of give you the same sort of high-level numbers that Luke gave you and say that we are looking for the current operating budget is for $13,735,372. That is inclusive of all expenditures, all money that has been put into expendable trusts, and it's essentially the whole enchilada for what we have been able to spend this year in all of the various capacities that we spend it. Our proposed budget for 21-22 is $14,425,925.93. It's an increase of $553,093, which is roughly 5% over the current budget. And like I said, a big portion of that number is actually a revenue-driven number, which means it has a neutral tax impact. So I'll get to that in a second. The default budget is very similar, very close to our proposed budget. It's $14,424,397.61. It's 5.02% higher than our current operating budget. And this establishes a pattern for many of you that have heard me talk about this. We do strive to have our proposed and default budgets very near to one another. We take the idea that a default budget is one that the voters could have us working within. We try very hard to keep our proposed budget as close to our default budget as possible. The fundamental differences a lot of times are where we wish to make those expenditures, okay? So while the total amounts may be only $1,500 apart from one another, the proposed budget has the dollars allocated within the accounts in which we feel they will best meet student need. So this is the point that I was getting at before. Federal grants, okay? There's $325,000 of the $690,000 that is allocated or related to federal grants that previously have been accepted and paid to the SAU, and in return the services have been spent there and delivered here at John Stark. In return, we are going to actually now collect them directly at John Stark, and you will see a corresponding expense for them in the John Stark budget, okay? So of that 5.03% increase that we talked about in our proposed budget, this simple financial transaction or moving of these dollars attributes or is responsible for 2.37% of it. And I said it before, it's in bold and black at the bottom here. This budget increase does not raise taxes locally. It is a neutral tax impact because it is supported by federal funding, federal grants, okay? So when we account for that, we now are left with a 2.66% increase over our existing operating budget. So we went from 5.03% down to 2.66%. And by the way, Jackie, thank you for creating these slides this way. This is a wonderful way to explain our budget. I'm going to talk about a few other drivers that sort of are responsible for where this 2.66% is coming from. The first one has to do with our contributions as an employer to the New Hampshire retirement system. This chart here shows you what those increases are, and they are steep this year. The employer, and I say steep for everybody involved, it is not simply just for taxpayers, it is also for the employees of this district. And so this chart illustrates that it's a 2.9% roughly increase for the employee in the employee portion to the retirement system, but for our portion for the district, it's 3.22%. Okay, that may seem like a small percentage, but it turns into some pretty sizable dollars that we wind up having to pay here within the district. And so as a result, we can see that we're going to have to spend $175,000, nearly $176,000, to fund that portion of the retirement, the increase to retirement, the employer portion of it. So when considering that is responsible for 1.28% of that remaining 2.66%. Okay. We also have healthcare, which is a contributing factor to this. We have GMR this year, which is, you've heard me talk about GMR before. This is our guaranteed maximum rate of increase for our health insurance. It's pegged this year at 7.3%. Fingers crossed it's something less than that, but of course we have to budget for what it is. We're looking at that being a $58,000, nearly $59,000 increase, which is responsible for another 0.43% of that 2.66%, okay? So if you're doing the math on the back of an envelope there, that's 1.71%, just about, okay, of that 2.6. So then we look at the remainder of what's here, and what we see contributing to that 2.66% are the district shares, in other words, what's coming from each of the different districts within the SAU for this. Our contracted services for student need, a lot of this has to do with special education, out-of-district placement stuff, and vocational education, transportation, and tuition. All of these having budget driver impacts on our overall budget. So the default budget, which you may all be familiar with, is under SB 2, and it is for it's the current year's budget, i.e. 2021's budget, minus one-time expenditures, and Frank asked this question during our public hearing. We did not have any one-time expenditures which related to COVID that we have carried forward into this new budget. I think that's something that, I'm trying to head that off right at the pass here. We know that there will be COVID-related expenditures as we go into next year, but we are also fortunate that we know we will have some funding to pay for that, okay? So those expenditures are not contemplated in a default budget sense, okay? So it's minus one-time expenditures, plus or minus contractual obligations, and anything related to health or safety issues or anything mandated by law. So again, the COVID stuff doesn't fall into the one-time expenditure piece in any particular way. I just want to make sure that we address that, okay? Therefore, the default budget is $14,424,398, which is $1,528 less than the proposed budget for next year. So it's within like 0.01% of our existing budget, okay, of the proposed budget. And so here we just put them in contrast to show where the numbers are. Our current default budget, our default budget compared to our current budget is $689,000 difference. Compared to the proposed budget, it's about $1,500 less. And this is showing you where we see our drivers for this actually coming from. So the difference between the default and proposed, salaries are slightly different. And my understanding is that this has to do with our summer school program. This is where we're going to wind up in our proposed budget, hopefully reconfigure